Hello and welcome to ESL 3-4. This week's topic is time. We're going to talk about quarter hours to describe time and units of time for work. Let's start with a big question. What are the different ways that we quantify time? And why do we quantify time? Well, all of our time is based upon the movement of the Earth. So it takes the Earth 1 year or 365 and a quarter days to revolve around the sun. And that is the basis for our year, right? Which is in turn the basis for a decade, which is 10 years, a century, which is 100 years, or a millennium, which is 1,000 years. We also have our month, which is a more irregular number of days, anywhere from 28 to 31. And we have the standard week, which is 7 days, all based on the movement of the Earth. And an additional movement of the Earth is for the Earth to rotate. To make one full rotation, it takes the Earth 24 hours, which is why we have 24 hours in a day. The rotation of the Earth and the 24-hour days is what makes it possible for it to be two different times in different places at the same exact moment in time. So there are 24 different time zones, but they're not uniform. As you can see here, Greenland is in 3 different time zones, but they only use the one for the majority of the country. Or you can see here, Iceland is in this blue bar, but it uses the same time as everybody else in this green bar. So that's pretty interesting. Check it out. Look at your home country. What time zone are you in relationship to us and to others? Well, let's talk about quarter past, quarter to, half past to describe time. So a quarter of a dollar is 25 cents, but a quarter of an hour is 15 minutes because quarter means to divide it in 4. So if we quarter an hour, we'd have 4 pieces. Each of them are 15 minutes. A quarter past is 15 past the hour. A quarter of and a quarter to are 15 minutes before the hour. Noon and midnight are at 12 exactly on the dot, and half past is 30 minutes past the hour. We're going to use these terms to talk about a schedule here, and there's one more opportunity for you to look at the time on those clocks. Before we talk about it, let's talk about some prepositions. So we usually use in, on, or at when we talk about time. So in is for your general, your big topics. On is more specific, and at is at a very specific moment. So we're going to talk using at because we have this very specific schedule. We know a school can be very strict, right? So we have all these different times here in the quarter hours. We could say that period 1 starts at a quarter past 8 and ends a quarter to 10. All right, we have some sentence frames here in present, past, and future tense for you to practice this with. Use this, say them out loud, write them down on paper, and practice. Okay, so here's just a quick review of the vocabulary we've looked at so far and what we're going to look at next. We have shift, full-time, overtime, and part-time. These are related to our workday. You can use these terms to create some sentences or discussions with a partner or just by yourself. Here are some examples. You can also read over and practice using the terms from the vocabulary list. But let's talk about these terms specifically. So we have part-time, less than 30 hours, full-time, more than 32 hours, normally 40 hours, and overtime is greater than 40 hours. We have a morning shift, an evening shift, and the new vocabulary word, the graveyard shift. Graveyard shift, that's when you work late at night. We also have on time and out of time. So let's put some of our vocabulary to use. We can look at this paycheck stub here for Jane Doe. And I would ask you, is Jane Doe a full-time or a part-time worker? What do you think? About how much does Jane make an hour? You have to do a little bit of math. And how many shifts do you think Jane works a week? Does she work two 20-hour shifts? Does she work 5 8-hour shifts? Does she work 4 10-hour shifts? What shifts do you think that Jane works? We have another paycheck stub here that we can also look at and work with our vocabulary. So how many hours did Bob Johnson work the second week of January? You'll have to look at that. How much did Bob Johnson invest in his savings plan? And how much does Bob Johnson get paid for his 41st and 42nd hour of work? The answers are in your slides after you've answered the questions. Another thing that we'll look at here, which is more practice for you, is the warehouse schedule for different workers. And we could say who works full-time, who works part-time, who works overtime, how many shifts does so-and-so work. And we have some sentence frames here, again, in present tense and past tense to answer those questions about and to use when discussing this chart. Okay, in our quiz this week, just as a heads up, we will talk and write about your work or the way that you spend your time in the week. We will review our vocabulary words. A couple different things are on here, so study those. And we have just linked in here, just because it's fun, a clock, an interactive clock that you can move around to quiz your friends or your kids or practice saying the different times. Okay. All right. That's all for us today. Thank you so much. Enjoy your class, and we'll see you soon.